Welcome to the Witchy Work Wishes podcast, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. Hello and welcome back to Witchy Work Wishes. Today's the day we are going to talk about one of those dates on the calendar that just makes people react instantly. Like really, the moment you say it out loud, you can just feel the room split in half. Friday the 13th. Now, some people hear Friday the 13th and they're like, no, absolutely not. Bad luck. I'm staying inside. I'm not making any big decisions today. All that good stuff. And then there's the other group, the ones who are like, ooh, it's Friday the 13th. Let's go. Like it's a portal day. It's, edgy and sacred and really the perfect excuse to be extra witchy and dramatic and powerful, which of course I fully support. No matter what side you fall on, though, both reactions are valid. Because whether we fear Friday the 13th or we love it, it holds a charge in our culture. Like it just does. It has a story and a reputation, and really, it's just got its own vibe. But what if Friday the 13th is not unlucky at all? What if it is a power day? What if it is not something to avoid, but something to use? What if Friday the 13th is actually one of those hidden little energetic doorways where we can work with protection and luck and boldness and transformation, simply because the collective energy has already marked the day as special? Let's reclaim it, shall we? Today I have some of the history behind Friday the 13th, where that fear actually comes from, why it actually got so loud in the first place. But I also want to talk about the magic of the number 13 and why so many witches and spiritually minded people consider it sacred, how it's connected to cycles, transformation, and the divine feminine. And you know what? We're going to talk about Friday itself too, because Friday is just not the day before the weekend. Friday actually has its own energetic signature. I would also like to touch on how we can actually use number magic in real life too. I did an episode a while back on numerology, so it's not going to be like a total dive into it. Just some simple, practical, witchy tools that you can weave into your everyday world. Because if you've ever noticed repeating numbers or, felt like certain dates kind of follow you around, or I don't know, maybe you've looked at the clock exactly at 11:11 and thought, okay, what does it mean? Then I think you are already paying attention, and number magic might already be trying to speak to you. Now, let's see, I don't have a bunch of witchy work wishes housekeeping notes, but I do want to ask my Hearth and Hen members a quick question. What do you guys think about a video link for a live meet and greet? I'm not sure why this has been lingering with me, but it has enough, or so much so that I really want to ask if you guys would like it too. Just a quick space to say hi and, meet each other. Our circle is pretty small right now, so I really think it could actually work. But shoot me a note, and if you guys like the idea or not, I'll play around with it and see what I can organize on my end. And if you are actually listening right now and don't know what Hearth and Hen is, well, it is the video companion to this Audible platform. It is a membership with Patreon. It's under $10 a month, and it has the very personal videos that I make at my home in my space. I have 2 that air every month that have been kind of like the base. I've got a full moon book reading video, and then a new moon new recipe video. But I don't know. I like the idea of having a meeting space once a month too, where, I don't know, the space is just open if you want to come in and say hi and talk. So Hearth and Hen members, reach out to me. Let me know what you think. Let's see. Also, I want to mention the Lupercalia episode that I recorded last year. I don't have anything like that slated for this year. So if you are looking for the episode about, Valentine's Day and Lupercalia, which is coming up this weekend for all of us, just head back to season 4. It is episode number 122 called Love Magic and Self-Care Potions. I talk a bunch about Lupercalia in that one. And it's a good reminder because when we look at February on the calendar in today's world, we of course see Valentine's Day. We see pink and red, hearts and chocolates and flowers and romance. Maybe a little pressure, maybe a little hope. Valentine's has become this very curated, very polished holiday for sure. But we know something fun. Valentine's Day has older roots, and beneath the sweetness is a much wilder current. And that older current, well, that is Lucalia. And I'm not here to ruin Valentine's Day. I actually love the idea of devotion and sweetness and love magic. But I also think it's powerful to know the deeper layer underneath it all because it helps me at least understand why February can just feel so intense. It's a lot of energy right now. And it's not just romance energy, it's really primal, like life force, the season where the world just starts to stir again. A big part of that has to do with Imbolc, but it's moving on, it's gaining momentum, and it's turning into something different, which really, I believe, is Lupercalia. Now, if you have not heard of Lupercalia before, it is an ancient Roman festival traditionally celebrated in mid-February, somewhere like 13th, 14th, 15th. It was held in honor of fertility, purification, and vitality. It was associated with the god Faunus, sometimes I think connected to that Pan-like energy, and the legendary wolf-nursed origins of Rome, Romulus and Remus. Lupercalia is raw, for sure. It is earthly. It is deeply, deeply tied to the body and to survival. This is, or it wasn't, a holiday about being polite. This was about fertility, protection cleansing, the health of the people, really the health of the land, and the shift from winter to spring. So in our language, in our witchy language, Lupercalia really was a seasonal spell, a communal ritual to kind of shake off the heaviness of winter and call life back into the body. Because even though I know February can still feel cold and dark for many of us, it's also the month where something starts moving under the surface. Now, Valentine's Day, as we know it today, is associated with Saint Valentine. And yes, I know there are multiple legends and multiple Valentines in early Christian history, which I think makes it extra mysterious. But what matters here is really the pattern. As Christianity spread, many older pagan festivals were either replaced, reframed, or absorbed into the new religious calendar. And Lupercalia, being an extremely popular Roman festival, it fell into that category. Over time, mid-February shifted from a pagan festival about fertility and purification into a Christian feast type day associated with Saint Valentine. And eventually, of course, much later, evolved again into what we now recognize as Valentine's Day. So in a way, Valentine's Day carries two energetic streams, right? It's got the softer romantic devotion layer and the older fertility, desire, and life force layer. It's kind of like Valentine's Day is the polished modern mask, but Lupercalia is the ancient heartbeat behind it. And if you've ever felt like Valentine's Day brings up intense emotions, longing, craving, tenderness, maybe some loneliness, passion, grief, hope, all of it, right? It makes sense, doesn't it? Because the roots of this season aren't just about romance. They're about the human need for connection and creation. They really are about just the body waking up again. I like knowing the roots of things, going back into history and stories and legends and myths. I like to know and understand the roots because it then helps me to know how I can work with the energy, or at least what some of my options are. And then, Valentine's Day becomes more than a consumer holiday in my practice. It becomes a portal into devotion magic. And Lupercalia becomes more than a history lesson. It becomes a chance to work with primal power in a clean, modern, intentional way. And I love this for my practice. I love this really for all of us because it gives us permission just to hold both sides, the soft love and the wild desire, the dark moon truth and the new beginning. February becomes this month where we don't just ask, like, do I have love? We really get to ask, am I alive in my own life? Like, do I want things? Do I crave things? Do I feel joy? Do I feel creative? Do I feel brave? Okay, let's just jump into it. Friday the 13th and the power of number magic. First, though, if you can, just set down superstition, fear, and all of the, old stories some of us have inherited. And let's step into something better. Today is all about Friday the 13th and the kind of witchy number magic that helps us claim our own power back. Let's talk about why Friday the 13th even has a reputation in the first place. Because what's kind of funny is it's not like the universe looked down and declared, this day shall be cursed. That's not how energy works. That's not how magic works. A lot of what we call bad luck around Friday the 13th is actually something much more human. It's story, memory, and tradition. And really, it's a little bit of conditioning. And I know you're probably thinking, like, hey, is Friday the 13th basically just a PR problem? Eh, kind of, yes, I think it is, but aren't a lot of things? Because the fear of Friday the 13th did not come from one single thing. It grew over time, like a bunch of old beliefs and superstitions and historical threads all tangled up together, kind of like a witch's knot of storytelling. There are old cultural associations with Friday being an ominous day in certain traditions, and the number 13 gets its own reputation too. It's the unlucky number, the number people skip on buildings and hotel floors. And what happens when you mix two things people already feel weird about? Uh, Yeah, you get a date that's basically branded as something bad might happen today. And where it gets a little interesting, because whether or not we believe in superstition, we are still swimming in the collective energy of it. And that's the part we understand, right? Energy is energy. If millions of people fear a day, then the energy around that day becomes loud. It becomes charged. It becomes a little volatile. Not because it's cursed, but because so many people are focused on it. It's like when, people spend all day expecting bad luck. Their nervous system is already braced for it. They're tense. They're looking for signs. They're jumpy. And when you're in that state, you really can interpret just about anything and everything as confirmation. You spill your coffee and, oh my gosh, it's Friday the 13th. Your meeting goes sideways and you're saying things like, see, I knew it. It really becomes a self-feeding little loop. And hey, I'm not saying weird things don't happen on Friday the 13th. They do. I'm just saying weird things happen every day, all the time. But Friday the 13th really has become this moment where the world is just collectively holding its breath. And that, I think, is exactly why we are going to flip it today. Because we do not fear a charged day. We love it, right? We use a charged day and say, okay, the collective is stirred up today. Perfect. There's power in that. Friday the 13th is not a day to hide. I believe it's a day to direct energy. It is a day to protect your space. It's a day to claim your luck back. It's a day to cut cords, maybe, reset the story. And it's definitely a day to stop acting like we are fragile. Because superstition at its core really is about giving your power away, right? It's about believing the day controls you. But in our practices, witchcraft really is choosing your relationship with the day. So today we're not walking into Friday the 13th like, please don't hurt me. Nope, we are walking into it like, I am protected, I'm lucky, I'm guided, and I decide what this day means. Let's look back at a little bit of history because Friday the 13th did not become spooky overnight. It's not like one day the calendar just decided to be dramatic. What we now call Friday the 13th superstition is kind of like a braid, really, right? It's made up of multiple strands of belief. We've got religious tradition, we've got some folklore, we've got some cultural fear around the number 13. And then later, of course, right, pop culture poured gasoline all over it. So let's rewind. First, the number 13. Long before Friday the 13th became, the big scary date, the number 13 already had a reputation. In Western cultures, 12 really has been seen as the complete number, right? We've got 12 months in a year. We've got 12 zodiac signs, 12 apostles, 12 tribes. It shows up everywhere. 12 shows up everywhere. So 13, of course, then becomes the number that pushes beyond the tidy order. It's the one that just does not fit neatly in the box. It's the number that says, yeah, we're not done yet. And what do? Humans, we naturally do when we do not understand something. Well, we often label it as dangerous. That really is the root of so many superstitions. There's also that famous Christian association, right? The Last Supper, 13 people at the table, and then betrayal, death, sorrow. And whether or not the 13th guest story is historically accurate in the way people tell it now, it absolutely shaped cultural fear around, the number 13 over time. So 13 becomes the number. And the interesting part, Friday itself also carried superstition. In certain Christian traditions, Friday became associated with loss and sorrow because of Good Friday and the day of the crucifixion. And because of that, Friday wasn't always seen as the best day to launch something new or do something risky. Again, not because Friday is cursed, but because the cultural story around it got heavier over time. So we've got two separate threads, energetic threads working against us right now. Friday itself has a serious reputation, and the number 13 has an unlucky reputation. And we know what happens when you combine two already charged symbols. But here's the twist. Even though people love to tell you Friday the 13th has ancient origins, the truth is, I believe the combination of Friday plus the number 13 as a single officially cursed day, it really does not show up clearly until the 1800s. Historians and, folklore experts will tell you it's not some perfectly, preserved ancient superstition. It's more like a superstition that just slowly formed and then kind of got popular. Some of the earliest written references to, Friday the 13th superstition appear in France in the 1830s. And you're going to see it in some of the plays and some of the literature. So it's like old, it's 200 years old, 200 years of momentum, but it's not ancient temple curse old, if you know if you know what I mean. Okay, we have to talk about, I think, the biggest rumor of, tying things back to this date. And you might have already heard the story, but Friday the 13th became unlucky because of the Knights Templar and them being basically arrested on Friday, October 13th in 1307. And yes, it is true that there was a mass arrest of the Templars on that specific date. It was actually ordered by King Philip IV of France. But here's what the researchers, I believe, collectively say. That event is not the original source of the superstition. That connection became popular like much later, especially through more of our modern storytelling and, conspiracy-laced pop culture. Now, if you do not know who the Knights Templar were, they were a Catholic military order founded around like 1119, 1120. It was during the time of the Crusades. Their original purpose was created to protect Christian pilgrims traveling to holy sites in, holy lands like Jerusalem, because those roads back then were like super, super dangerous. Now, the Knights Templar became known as elite, disciplined warrior monks because they first took religious vows, right? Poverty, chastity, obedience. They were actually trained fighters, especially with heavy cavalry, and they wore the white cloaks with the red crosses. So they were headquartered on a Temple Mount in Jerusalem, which I believe is historically associated with the Temple of Solomon, which is also, I think, where their name comes from. Now, over time, the Knights Templar grew hugely influential and wealthy, partly because they developed early financial services, safe transfers for travelers, holding of funds, all that good stuff, which in turn made them very, very powerful across Europe. So they weren't just warriors, they really became an institution. In the early 1300s, the Templars had become extremely powerful and wealthy, not just militarily, but financially. And this made them dangerous politically, especially to King Philip IV of France, who, guess what, was deeply in debt to them. So he accused the order of heresy, blasphemy, and secret rituals. Under intense pressure, the Catholic Church, of course, had to investigate the claims. Where the drama begins? Well, in 1307, King Philip IV of France, he ordered the arrest of the Templars, accusing them of the many crimes, which I think we need to note. Many of the confessions were extracted under torture, so please take all of this with a grain of salt. But eventually, the Catholic Church suppressed, dissolved, whatever you want to call it, the order in 1312. And because the mass arrest happened on Friday, October 13th, 1307, people often connect the Knights Templar to some of the Friday the 13th superstition. So, was it a terrifying and tragic historical event? Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Was it the birth of Friday the 13th superstition? Probably not, really. Still, though, many of us are going to hear this and go, okay, yeah, that's a lot of heavy energy on that day. I get it, I do. But let's talk about why it actually got so big. Where Friday the 13th really, I think, starts to kind of glow up into the superstition that we recognize today, I think it goes back to 1907. And there was a best selling novel titled Friday the 13th by Thomas W. Lawson. And really, it played directly into the idea of the 13th as an unlucky day. Not the 13th, Friday. Friday the 13th as an unlucky day. One that is specifically tied to panic and chaos. Of course, once you connect superstition to fear and money, ooh, let's go, it spreads, right? And fear spreads faster than calm does. Then later, of course, pop culture took the date and turned it into a whole brand, really, especially with the Friday the 13th horror film franchise, which, carved its own little superstition into the cultural psyche. So now what do we have? We have a modern world where some buildings skip the 13th floor. Some people avoid travel on the 13th. Some businesses even notice patterns around that date. And some people really treat it like the calendar itself is out to get them. But we know, right? Superstition really is just unclaimed power. Because what is it? Like overall, what is it? It's people performing an unconscious ritual, right? It's expecting bad luck, searching for signs, just bracing for impact. But witchcraft? Well, witchcraft is choosing a different story. And when we understand that Friday the 13th became powerful because humans gave it power, we also remember that we can reclaim it. We do not have to fear a date. We can enchant it. Okay, let's talk numbers, shall we? And the witchy truth underneath all of the energy Friday the 13th has. Because at the heart of this whole conversation is something we have always understood. Numbers are not just numbers. Numbers are symbols. They are energetic keys, really. They're tiny little messages the universe uses to speak in patterns. And whether you think of it as a, spirit, intuition, fate, synchronicity, maybe just your own higher self trying to get your attention, numbers have a way of showing up when we are ready to listen. And numbers, I think, are one of the easiest magical languages to start working with because they're already living inside your everyday life, right? You don't have to go buy much tools. You don't have to have an altar the size of a kitchen table. And you really don't have to memorize anything complicated. You just have to notice because numbers are everywhere. They show up all of the time. Think about it. We see them. We see them on clocks. We see them on receipts. We see them in house numbers, phone numbers, our addresses. We see them in deadlines, calendar dates, appointment times, notifications. We see them in birthdays, anniversaries, and our ages, right? We see them in the number of days in a month. We see them in moon phases and Sabbats and cycles. Numbers are basically the background music of our lives. And witches, we don't ignore the background music, do we? We listen for the pattern. I think when people hear numerology, they often think of it like this big complicated system where you have to calculate a life path number and a destiny number and a soul number and then build a spreadsheet and, listen, that is beautiful work. I'm not going to say I have not done it. But today, that's not what I'm talking about. Because number magic isn't really about predicting. It's not about, looking at numbers and going, oh no, like this means something bad is about to happen. That's, I think, superstition. Again, peeking his little head out. Number magic is something else. It's about noticing patterns and then giving those patterns intention. Because in our craft, meaning has power, right? So instead of numbers controlling you build a relationship with them. You start to treat them like little energetic signposts, like little cosmic mirrors, kind of like little taps on the shoulder. Like when you keep catching the time at, 1:11 or 2:22 or 3:33, or you get a total on a receipt when you're out shopping and it's for $13.13. And you're like, okay, what's happening here, right? Or you realize that you keep seeing the number 8 lately, or 4, or 5. And instead of brushing it off, you pause and you ask, like, what is this number trying to highlight for me now? Like right now? Is it asking me to slow down? Is it asking me to focus? Is it showing me that I'm aligned? Is it pointing at a lesson I've been avoiding? Is it confirming a decision? Because again, numbers can be those tiny little signposts that can help us feel less lost. And guess what? If you've never done this kind of work before, it's okay. Anybody can do this. You do not need to be, good at math. You don't need to be spiritually gifted. And you certainly do not need a fancy numerology chart. This is really intuitive magic. And the only requirement is that you are just willing to be present for it. So if you've been feeling like you want a few more signs or, I don't know, some gentle guidance or just that quiet reassurance that you are actually moving in the right direction, try noticing the numbers that keep showing up all around you. One of the fun things about our practices is that the universe does not always raise its voice. Sometimes I think it just kind of leans in close and whispers through patterns. Okay, so now that we've talked about number magic and the way numbers can act like little energetic keys, let's add in the day of the week energy and talk about Friday, because Friday is not neutral. Friday has a vibe, doesn't it? And if you've ever felt like you just come alive again on Fridays, even if you still have work and your to-do list is still long, you know what I'm talking about. Friday carries this energy of release and ease and softening, and this little magnetic whisper that says, "Okay, hey, you've made it. Now breathe." And what's really fun is that Friday has an actual traditional association in a lot of systems. Friday is connected to Venus. And Venus energy is honestly one of my favorites to work with because it is not just romance. Venus is way, way bigger than that. Venus is love, beauty, pleasure, attraction, worth and abundance and receiving. It's about desire and devotion. And this matters because when we work with Friday energy, we are not just working with a day of the week. We are working with the vibration of magnetism. Friday isn't about chasing things down. It's really about calling them in. It's not hustle energy like when we work with Saturn or Mars. Venus works differently. Venus really is that magnetic energy, the energy of I know my worth, so I receive it. It's the I trust what's meant for me, so I attract it type of work. It's the kind of energy that says I nourish myself and life nourishes me back. That's why Friday is such a powerful day for many of us in our practices, because so much of witchcraft is not about force, right? It's alignment. It's about choosing the energy that matches what you want. So, when people say Friday is a lucky day or a love day or a money day, they're not wrong because Venus energy supports that. It works with love spells and self-love spells, really. Glamour magic, attraction magic, money magic. It works with abundance and creative inspirations. It works with relational harmony, all things that feel soft and lush and beautiful and worth having. I know sometimes we hear beauty and pleasure and we think it's superficial, but I think we know this little secret. Pleasure is power. Because when you allow yourself to enjoy your life, you remember that you're not here to suffer your way into worthiness. You are already worthy. And when you live like you're worthy, oh, it's so beautiful, isn't it? Like that becomes a spell. So Friday really becomes this day where we can put on our favorite perfume and let that be an enchantment. We can make a cup of tea and stir intention into it. We can tidy our home and make it a sacred place to receive good things. We can spend time with our body, our creativity, and our relationships. And we can also do the practical stuff too, right? Because we love being practical. So Friday is actually a beautiful day for setting money intentions, making a purchase with intention, organizing your schedule for ease, closing some loops, sending invoices, and finishing like the thing and blessing it as complete. It's kind of that wrap it up and blessed energy day, close the week with dignity day, and really just I honor my effort type of energy. So it's pretty powerful, right? Friday the 13th is a power combination because Friday, brings the Venus energy, worthiness, magnetism, receiving, love. And then 13 comes in with transformation. So it becomes this beautiful day where we can say, I'm calling in what I want and I'm shedding what blocks it. Yes, please. Like, I love it. So this week, this Friday, when the 13th arrives, instead of fear, we can treat it like a witch's doorway, really. A day to become more magnetic, more protected, more open, more brave. Now, we do have to talk about the number 13 a little bit more because I think 13 is one of the most understood numbers of all time, really. Like, it's honestly kind of unfair. 13 gets blamed for everything. People avoid it. They skip it in buildings. Some people won't schedule things actually on the 13th. And in some places, it is literally treated like the number itself is bad luck. And then most of us, we're over here like, what? What do you mean? What? I don't think so. Because when you look at 13 through a witchy lens, it doesn't feel unlucky at all. For me, it feels powerful, sacred, cyclical, transformational. 13 is not a curse. 13 is a cycle. It is an energy of completion and beginning. It is the number that says, this chapter is done. And now we are stepping into something else. And you know what? I don't know. Maybe that is really it. Maybe right there is why people fear it. Because transformation is not always comfortable. Most fear isn't really fear of bad luck, right? It's fear of change. 13 has a reputation because it represents the moment when the story shifts, when something ends, when something new begins, when the old identity can't follow you into the next chapter. And that's not bad. That's amazing. Now, there's also this beautiful witchy connection between 13 and the moon. And if you practice lunar witchcraft, you are already accustomed to working with the pattern. You've heard people say there are 13 moon cycles in a year, or maybe you've heard like 13 lunar months. And even if the calendar does not perfectly match it in the modern world, the symbolism still matters because it ties 13 to a deeper truth. 13 is connected to lunar wisdom, and lunar wisdom is not linear. It is not hustle energy. It is not constant growth. It is not, always forward, always more. Lunar wisdom is the natural ebb and flow, the rest and rise, the darkness and light, the death and rebirth. It is the sacred rhythm of becoming, and that is exactly what 13 represents to me. 13 is the number that lives in the spaces we don't always know how to hold. It's the number of shedding skin and releasing what no longer fits. It's the number of closing a cycle and stepping into the unknown. And for us in our practices, that's our territory, right? That's where the magic happens. That's where intuition gets loud. That's where we just stop clinging to the version of ourselves that used to survive. And we start becoming the version of ourselves that gets to thrive. And so we also have the, divine feminine piece of this magical number. Historically, so much of the fear around 13, I think, is connected to the fear of feminine power, that cyclical power again, right? Wild power. 13 doesn't obey neat little boxes. 13 does not stay tidy. It doesn't stay obedient. It really is the energy of the witch, the wise woman, the medicine woman, the one who knows. And in cultures that, wanted women to be smaller and quieter and more controllable, of course the wild cyclical number would be labeled unlucky. Like, of course it would. Of course the power day would be turned into something to fear. And you know what? That alone, oh my goodness, you guys, that alone tells me that 13 is sacred. Because witches have always been associated with the things society tried to shame: intuition, desire, beauty, power, cycles, death, rebirth, mystery. And 13, yep, it holds all of that. When we talk about 13 being connected to feminine power, it's not just symbolic, like it's literal. Because the womb carrying body has long been linked to a rhythm that moves in cycles. And many traditions connect that rhythm to 13 cycles in a year. Now, depending on how you count it, we know the modern calendar doesn't always line up perfectly with the moon and the body, right? Human bodies vary, cycles vary, and that is completely normal and sacred. But if you look at it from an ancestral, energetic, mythic point of view, the idea is that there are about 13 lunar cycles in a year, and the feminine body is, in fact, a lunar body. And you can feel, like physically feel that truth if you've ever lived inside a body that has cyclical seasons. Because those seasons do not just change the body, like they change the psyche, they change the energy, they change the way we dream and focus, and the way we protect, the way we create, the way we rest. And this is why I think 13 has always been considered sacred in so many older traditions, because it wasn't just a number. It represented the living calendar inside women. It represented the rhythm of bleeding and renewal, fertile creation energy, inward seasons and outward seasons, and, just that release and rebirth cycle. Basically, 13 is the number of becoming. Like, we are not finishing anything, we are not arriving at something, we are becoming. And when you look back through history, there's a pattern that is pretty hard to miss. Anything that made women powerful eventually got labeled as dangerous. Our cycles, our knowing something, our intuition, our ability to feel time in a way that isn't straight or linear. The feminine body doesn't measure life in lines. It really is all about circles. And circles are powerful. Circles don't end, they don't finish, they return over and over and over again. And each time they deepen and they evolve. And that kind of cyclical wisdom is exactly what patriarchy and systems of control have always tried to tame. So, of course, right? Of course, the number tied to that power was stamped with a warning label. Of course, 13 was turned into something unlucky. Because if you can convince people to fear the feminine, to, fear the cyclical, to fear the dark, well, you disconnect them from their own power. And witches were like, yeah, sorry, sorry, we're not here for that. We are here to reclaim the sacred truth that the dark parts of the cycle are not bad, they are necessary, right? Our bleeding is not weakness, it's cleansing. Our inward season is not being lazy, it's wisdom. And our beautiful bodies, are not shameful, they are a temple. And the number 13? Well, I do not think it is misfortune. I think it is part of the rhythm of our life. So when you look at Friday the 13th through the lunar and feminine lens, it's not a bad luck day at all. It is a day of deep reclaiming, because the dark is where magic incubates. The dark is where we learn who we really are. So you know what? If you've ever felt nervous on Friday the 13th, maybe it isn't because something bad is coming. Maybe it's because part of you knows that you are being invited to shift. And that invitation, that's not unlucky. That's sacred. That's amazing. So no, no. In this house, 13 is not unlucky. 13 is a key. And when we turn it, we unlock the next door. Okay, so now that we've reclaimed 13 as sacred, let's talk about how we can actually work with number magic in some simple, real ways. Friday, again, carries Venus energy, right? Love, beauty, worthiness, magnetism. And then the number 13 carries transformation, cycles, endings, beginnings, rebirth. So this is where it gets really fun, because now we get to bring those two energies together. Friday the 13th isn't just two unlucky things stacked on top of each other. It is two deeply powerful forces meeting on the same day. Friday is like, call it in, receive it, be magnetic, like you are worthy type of a day. And 13 is like, hey, shed what blocks, end the cycle, transform, and become. So, Friday the 13th, then, of course, becomes this gorgeous mix of attraction and transformation, of devotion and direction, of sweetness and strength, and pleasure and power. Love that. Isn't that amazing? Doesn't that just sound so good? That is a day we can work with. When a day is culturally charged, it becomes like a psychic little weather system. Even people who don't believe in it still feel it. People walk into Friday the 13th and they are a little cautious, a little tense, a little hyper aware, and we don't ignore that. We say, oh, hey, yeah, the air is electric today. Perfect. Because Friday the 13th is a day where you can make one decision, one ritual, one little tiny action, and it feels like it just, I don't know, echoes louder than usual. It's like the universe has the volume just jacked up. So instead of letting fear be the loudest thing, we let intention be louder. This is not the day to shrink, to doubt yourself, or, like spiral into worst case scenarios. This is the day to stand taller. This is the day to say, I am not available for bad luck narratives. It's the, yeah, I'm not available for fear type day. I'm not available for old stories. Because in our craft, stories are spells. And we decide what spell we are living inside. Friday the 13th is a day where you can just break a loop too, whatever that loop looks like for you. A loop of self doubt, maybe procrastination, scarcity thinking, repeating the same relationship pattern. Maybe it's a loop of plain small. I know I've been talking a lot about habits this year so far in our episodes and, working on how we want things to feel. So pick something you personally want to work with here because 13 is transformation. Friday the 13th becomes the perfect day to say, I am ending this cycle and I am ending it with power. And what I've been trying to say is, thank you. Thank you for serving me in the past, but you no longer support the person I am becoming. I am saying goodbye. Now, if you were wondering what kind of magic Friday the 13th supports, like, what kind of spell work hits hardest on this day, I think some big ones are probably going to be protection magic. Right? This is an amazing day just for protecting your home and your peace and your energy. Another big one's going to be luck magic, and not like, like gambling luck. I mean, like life luck, synchronicity, good timing, right place, right moment type stuff. Another big one's going to be worthiness and that, like, receiving type magic. Friday, Venus energy loves self love spells and like glamour magic. The I am worthy enchantments. Another big one's going to be boundary spells. If you do have a need to cut cords, yeah, the 13th is your day. Transformation rituals too. This is when you release the old identity and step into the new story. This is really where the superstition flips into witchcraft. Superstition says, don't do anything today, but witchcraft says, do the right thing today. One powerful thing, one intentional thing, even if it's small, because if Friday the 13th is, in fact, a portal day, then invite a choice. So if you've been, waiting for a sign to begin, or maybe a sign to end something, or a sign to finally like choose yourself, consider this your sign. This episode is your sign. Friday the 13th isn't here to curse you. I think it is here to initiate you. So how do we actually use number magic? Like, what does it look like in real life? What can we do today in our normal schedules, in our regular witchy lives, that just makes this feel real? And again, I'm certainly no expert in this field, but I also don't think number magic is something you have to study for, 10 years before you're allowed to touch it. It really is one of the most beginner friendly forms of witchcraft that we have because it works on one simple principle. Just notice the number, assign meaning with intention, and then take a tiny aligned action. Well, that's I hope I'm not oversimplifying this and leading you guys down the wrong path, but I really do think it at least begins this simple. So I'm going to give you some options. Some options that you can use like right away. First one is just choose a number ally for the month. At the beginning of the month or at the new moon, maybe, choose one number to work with. This is going to become your number ally, your energetic theme. And you don't have to overthink it. Pick the number that matches what you want to call in. Numerology has some generally accepted guidelines for number energy. One is the fresh start, independence, and leadership. Two is the partnership, the support energy, and balance energy. Three is about creativity, communication, and expression. Four is, stability, structure. Think of like your home and foundations with this one. Five is about change and courage and momentum. Six is about love and nourishment and devotion. Seven has our intuition energy. It's about, spiritual growth and inner wisdom. Eight, I think, is generally accepted for abundance, right? Money, power, achievement. Nine really is about release, endings, letting go, and it's a big completion number. And then 10, expansion, destiny. It's like a new level has been unlocked. And once you choose your number, you just start looking for it. Not in a paranoid way like you're hunting for it, but, just curious, gentle. Like, okay, universe, show me 8. Or, okay, life, show me 4. And then if it starts showing up, that becomes your confirmation that you are aligned with that energy. It becomes this nice little reminder to return to your intention. So let's say your number for the month is 4, and you keep seeing on the clock 4:44, or on your receipt $4.44, whatever it is. That's the universe saying, come back to your foundation, come back to your structure, come back to your boundaries and to what supports you. Another thing we can do right now in our day in and day out lives is clock magic, and what you can do when you see repeating numbers. This is a pretty common way I think people experience number magic. 1111, 111, 222, 333. And you don't have to treat these like, fortune cookie predictions. It's not like 1111 means the universe is going to deliver a package on Tuesday. Repeating numbers are more like a pause, really, like a tap on the shoulder and a reminder to wake up. So when you see repeating numbers, I think the first step is just to pause, right? Just take 3 seconds, breathe, do one slow breath, and just ask this question. What was I just thinking about? Because most of the time, that I think is supposed to be our message, not the number itself, but the moment it catches you. So if you glance at the clock and it's 2:22, what were you just thinking right there? Were you doubting yourself? Were you worrying? Were you daydreaming? Were you making a plan? So repeating numbers often show up just to reflect your inner world. So once you see it on the clock, assign a simple meaning. For example, going back to the generally accepted number stuff, 111 on the clock would be tied to begin, choose, initiate. 2:22 on the clock has to do something with balance and relationships and some type of support. 3:33 on the clock, create, express, speak your truth. 4:44, hey, protect your foundation. Be careful, build a structure. 5:55 could be something about, change is happening and that you need to move with it. And then, finish with the most important step and just take one aligned action because of it, even if it's tiny. So if you see, something to do with 8s on the clock and you've been avoiding money stuff, I don't know, send the invoice, check your bank balance, check your bank account, do one money task. If you see a sequence or, on the clock, 4s and you've been scattered, clean one counter, update one list, set a boundary, put your phone away for 4 minutes. Because number magic becomes real when it becomes embodied, right? Let's see, another thing we can do is some receipt magic. My shoppers out here. Yes, receipts. This one I know makes us all giggle a little bit, but it is practical. If you get a receipt, after you've been shopping, and the total has some type of repeating numbers on it, stop and treat it like a little message. $22.22, or $44.44, $13.13. Just stop and say something like, okay, I see you, and then decide what that number means for you. Like if you just have a receipt that says $13.13, that might be your cue to say, okay, all right, I am transforming my relationship with money. I release scarcity. I reclaim abundance. And you can tuck that little receipt into your wallet for 13 days as a little money charm. Witchcraft is not always about candles and smoke. Love it, right? We all love it. Sometimes, though, witchcraft is a grocery store receipt. Let's see, what else can we do? House number. Something with your house numbers can be used with numerology. It is a little magical signature. It's kind of like the vibration of your home, really. So if you want to do number magic with your house, try this. Look at your house number and then reduce it to a single digit. If your address is, 248, you're going to take the 2 plus the 4 plus the 8 and come up with the number 14. But we still have to reduce it down, right? The number 1 plus the number 4 reduces down to the number 5. So that home, your house, holds 5 energy. Then you can bless your doorway accordingly. Like, a 4 home is going to be about protection and foundation. A 6 home is going to be about love and family. An 8 home is really going to be about abundance and prosperity. Even if you don't want to do the math, you can still bless it. Put salt at your doorstep, draw a little sigil, sprinkle some rosemary, and let your home become a number charm. The other thing I do like to do is just some lucky number sigil magic. Pick a number that you want to embody, like 13, our hot ticket number for today, or I don't know, maybe the number 8 for abundance, or 4 for protection. Then turn that number into a symbol. You can literally write it in a fancy way, overlap it and decorate it, stylize it, and then place it somewhere where you are going to see it. On your planner, on your mirror, on a sticky note in your wallet, maybe your phone background image, wherever. But then every time you see it, it just reminds your body, this is who I'm becoming. That's number magic. It's not super complicated, or I don't know. It isn't in my practice. I'm sure it can get much more complicated, but I just don't think it's locked behind a bunch of rules for me, at least yet. It is a living relationship with the patterns that are already surrounding all of us. Numbers really are everywhere, which means magic is everywhere. And once you start noticing them, you realize something pretty cool. You are being guided by little breadcrumbs of magic. All right, the part we have all been waiting for, because it is one thing to understand Friday the 13th, and it's another thing to actually work with it. So I've got some ideas, some things I want to share with you so you have some options this coming weekend. These are not 3-hour ceremony rituals. You do not need to buy special supplies. It is practical witchcraft. Ritual number 1, Friday the 13th protection reset. This one is going to be really good for anxiety and stress and feeling just like energetically open, needing some safety and grounding maybe. It's going to be for the witches who are like, hey girl, I am not trying to manifest big things today. I just want peace. And guess what? I get you. I want peace too. All right, so here's what we can do. A salt cleanse on our thresholds. Just sprinkle a little salt at your front door and your back door, or even just, on the windowsill, and say, only good may enter. Only good may stay. You can do a rosemary sweep. Take a rosemary sprig, fresh or dried, sweep it lightly around the doorway and say, this home is protected. This space is sealed. We can also do one candle, right? That one candle protection for reset. Light a candle. I say white's going to be pretty good for this one if you get into the color magic. And just whisper, I am safe. I am guided. I am guarded. And there you have it. You just claimed your space. And trust me, your nervous system is going to feel it. The other thing we can do is a luck and opportunity spell. And this one really has a lot of Friday the 13th vibes to it. Kind of like an open the road ritual. It is going to be really good for money, momentum, like job type luck, opening doors, and good timing type energy. Friday gives that magnetism, right? 13 gives transformation. So we're like, okay, universe, like I'm ready for better. Here's what you can do. Write this sentence 13 times. Luck opens the road for me. Or you could even write, opportunities find me easily. Write it 13 times though. Fold the paper towards you, right? Draw the energy in, and then place it under something that represents movement. Your keys, your wallet, your planner, maybe it's your laptop. Sprinkle cinnamon on it, just a little tiny bit, and then say, may what is meant for me find me. Boom, you're done. Okay, let's see, what else can we do? We can do a Venus glamour and worthiness spell. This one is really going to be good for like confidence and self-love, attraction, feeling powerful in your own body. It's going to be good if you're ready to feel hot and blessed. This Friday is that Venus energy, right? So we're working with beauty and worth and pleasure and magnetism. Here's the ritual. Take a shower or, wash your hands mindfully. Put lotion on your body slowly, like really like it's a spell. Dab perfume or if you've got some essential oils on your pulse points. Think about like your neck and your wrists here. And then look in the mirror and say, I am worthy of love. I am worthy of abundance. I am worthy of being chosen, and I choose myself first. And then go. Go and be seen. Even if being seen means posting a selfie, sending an email, or you know what? Walking into the store like you own the place. How about a good cord cutting ritual too? Something to kind of like end the cycle. This is going to be good for repeating patterns, bad habits, energetic attachments, and really just letting go. It is going to be the ritual really that matches 13 the most because 13 is the ending of the old story. So here's what you can do. Write down what you are releasing on paper. Whatever it is for you. You could say, I release people pleasing. I release procrastination. I release scarcity thinking. I release the version of me that stays small. Fold it away from you, right? You're pushing it away. You're releasing it. Tear it up or burn it and say, the cycle ends here. I do not carry this forward with me. I am free. Then immediately after, do one tiny thing that represents the new cycle beginning, even if it's drinking water, even if it's making your bed, maybe it's sending the text, opening your planner, deleting the old file, I don't know, cleaning one corner, whatever it is. That's how you seal transformation. This one is really potent this year, you guys, because Friday the 13th is happening right by our dark moon. So a cord cutting, ending the cycle type ritual is going to be just extra powerful right now. Lastly, I think we could also do a 13 wish ritual, kind of like a new path portal. This is really good for new moon energy, manifesting and future planning. It's perfect if Friday the 13th is on or near a new moon, which, for us in February is not happening until next week, on Tuesday actually. But really, this ritual works anytime you feel you're entering a new chapter. Write 13 wishes, simple desires, but write them as something like you already have. We know this trick, right? I have peace. Don't write down, I want peace. I have peace. I have financial stability. I have joy. I have creativity. I have consistency. I have love that feels safe. And then fold it and keep it somewhere sacred. Maybe for you, it's under a candle. Maybe it's under your pillow. Maybe it's in your journal. But don't keep rereading it obsessively. Like, we're not looking for begging type energy. This is planting energy. 13 wishes become 13 seeds. And you know what? Because I love my kitchen witchcraft, Friday the 13th is a beautiful night for a little luck meal. Make something warm. Make something nourishing and stir your intention into it. Because when we feed ourselves with love and magic, well, that is spell work too. If one of these things sound good to you and you choose some Friday the 13th magic, just keep it simple. Keep it intentional. And remember that Friday the 13th is not here to haunt you. It's here to help you become the version of you who does not fear transformation and does not apologize for wanting more. Now, not all of us get to spend Friday the 13th curled up at home with candles and incense and a cauldron bubbling on the stove. Some of us are going to be working. Some of us are going to be in meetings. Some of us are going to be answering emails and putting out fires and, trying to stay mentally stable while a client or customer or someone sends a quick question that is never a quick question. So let's talk about Friday the 13th at the office, because this is actually one of my more favorite places to work with this type of energy. And I'll tell you why. When you are in an office environment, you are in a building full of human energy. Other people's stresses, their moods, their opinions, their, sense of urgency. And if you are sensitive at all, if you are intuitive, empathic, or witchy, you've probably noticed this. Some days you walk into work and you're like, goodness, why does it feel like the air is crunchy in here? Well, that's energetic buildup. So when Friday the 13th rolls around and everybody's already a little weird about it, well, it is the perfect day to use protection magic and power magic in a very practical way. Because on Friday the 13th, the collective energy is charged. People are on edge. And I think they're just expecting chaos. As a witch, especially an office witch, this is where we can do our quiet little magic. We can become the calm. We can become the person who doesn't spiral and is the nice, safe center. We can become the one who directs energy instead of absorbing it. And I've got a few ways that we can do it. The first one is to make your desk a protection altar. You don't need a pentacle on your desk. You really just need some intention. Friday the 13th is a protection day, so take literally 60 seconds in the morning and straighten your desk. Throw away one piece of clutter. Wipe the surface with a tissue or cloth. And as you do it, say only aligned energy may remain here. And that's it. That's office witchcraft. Because clutter holds energy. We talked about this a bunch in the Decluttered Witch episode. Mess holds static. A clear desk becomes a clear channel, and you decide what gets near you. Second thing we can do is just use that Friday Venus energy for confidence. Venus is not that fragile type of energy. It really is magnetic. So on the 13th, Friday the 13th, before you walk into a meeting, especially one where you feel small or nervous, do a little micro glamour spell. No one will know. Just touch your pulse point, adjust your necklace or ring, and put your hand briefly over your heart. Affirm that you are respected, you are capable, and you belong in that room. Friday the 13th isn't the day to shrink at work. It really is a day to, take up energetic space. Another thing you can do is turn anxiety into a luck charm. If your coworkers are like, OMG, it's Friday the 13th, instead of letting that energy infect you, flip it. Say, perfect, today is lucky for me. And here's the secret spell. When everyone else expects problems, you become the person who expects solutions. That shift alone just changes everything. It makes you sharper and grounded. It makes you protected. It makes you, like you, the one directing energy. And that is an office witch superpower. Let's see, we can also do some boundary magic at the office. Friday the 13th is so good for boundaries. It really is the day that you stop over-explaining. You stop apologizing. Stop taking on extra tasks because you feel guilty. It is the day you practice simple boundary phrases like, ooh, I can't take that on today. Or maybe you say, hey, that's not in my scope. Or you can say something like, I can do X, but I can't do Y. You could also say something like, hey, let me get back to you after I prioritize. Boundaries are protection spells, and every time you say no with love, you are casting. Every time you protect your time, you are casting. Every time you choose your peace over chaos, well, yeah, that's Friday the 13th magic. Let's see, we could also do a little number magic at work. Just pick one number to work with that day. Again, 13, our star of the show today. 13 is transformation, cycle breaking, but you could choose the number 8 for abundance and money and achievement. You could choose the number 4 for stability, protection, and focus. But choose something and write it in your planner. Put it on a sticky note or even just, type it across your notes app. And every time you see it during the day, say, I stay aligned. It just becomes this nice little energetic checkpoint. If you are, in fact, working this Friday, on Friday the 13th, do not think that you're missing out on the magic. The office is an energetic playground. It's a place where magic is needed. And you don't have to be loud about it, or you don't have to perform it. You can work quietly and protect your energy. You can call luck in, and you can cut cords. You can reclaim your worth. All of it while everyone else is whispering about bad luck, too. You can just smile to yourself and think, not me. I am protected, I am lucky, and I decide what today becomes. Okay, real quick before we wrap up today, I know not everyone hears Friday the 13th and feels excited. For some people, that date really does bring up anxiety. And honestly, I think it can bring up a bunch of fear. That old tight feeling in the chest, like something might go wrong. And if that is you, you are not silly. You are not being dramatic. You are not weak. You are human just like all of us. And if this episode or, this energy is not resonating with you, that's okay. You do not have to force yourself into it. Magic isn't about pushing past your nervous system or pretending you feel something that you don't. It's just about listening to yourself and responding with love and care. So if Friday the 13th feels like it's just too much, just create your own little ritual, something simple and steady that helps you feel safe and grounded. Light a candle and sit down quietly for a moment. Make a warm cup of tea or a hot mug of soup. Take a slow walk. Clean your space. Do something familiar, something that is comforting to you and, tells your body that we are okay. You don't need to work with this day in any specific way. You don't have to reclaim anything if that does, not feel right or it feels overwhelming. Your magic is allowed to be gentle. Your power is allowed to be whatever you need it to be. And honoring what you need, especially when it comes to fear, well, I think that's a little form of love magic, don't you? Superstitions are tough. They really, really are. They are powerful because they have just been passed down like an emotional heirloom. Sometimes we grew up with them. Sometimes we absorb superstitions from culture. I don't know, sometimes it's from movies and stories and jokes, and it gets lodged in our nervous system. But all of that matters and it all adds up. Fear is a spell. Not because fear is evil, but because, fear is energetic. It creates expectation and programs the body. Fear makes us hyper alert. So when people say Friday the 13th is bad luck, what they are really doing is planting a suggestion. Be afraid today. Be careful today. Expect something bad today. And that seed gets planted and watered and nurtured so often that it becomes like a cloud, a collective cloud. And if you're sensitive and intuitive, if you pick up on energy easily, you're going to feel that cloud even if you do not consciously believe in it. So if Friday the 13th feels heavy sometimes, you might not actually be reacting to the day. You might be reacting to the collective fear surrounding the day. And that really is a completely different thing, isn't it? The empowering part of it, though, we don't shame fear. We just work with it. We kind of recognize it and name it, honor it for what it's trying to do, and then we choose. Because fear isn't always wrong. It's there for a reason. Fear is often the nervous system trying to protect us, but the nervous system doesn't always know what is real. It just knows what is familiar. So if fear is coming up around Friday the 13th, I don't know, instead of fighting it, just try saying okay, I see you. Thank you for trying to protect me, but I am safe. And then do one tiny act of power. That's how we do it. That's how we break a superstition spell. Not by forcing yourself to be fearless, but by gently teaching your body a new story. Because what I believe, well, a lot of superstition is just unconscious ritual. Think about it, right? People wake up on Friday the 13th and they avoid certain choices and brace for impact and look for signs. They interpret normal inconveniences as proof. That is ritual behavior for sure. It's just ritual driven by fear. Now, witchcraft is ritual too, but witchcraft is conscious. Witchcraft says, instead of spiraling, I ground. Instead of fearing, I protect. And for this coming Friday, we say instead of expecting bad luck, I bless my path. So if Friday the 13th makes you nervous, just put your hand on your chest, take a breath, and say, I am protected, I am guided, and I do not belong to fear. Today belongs to me. That's it. You don't need to do big magic to be a witch. You do not need to perform confidence. You just need to practice coming back to yourself. So, yes, I do understand. I do know the shadow side of Friday the 13th exists, but it doesn't have to rule you. Fear doesn't get to write the story. You do. And today, we are rewriting it. Well, what do you think? How do you feel about Friday the 13th? Hopefully, not in the spooky, fear based way the world usually talks about it, but in the way many of us understand it. We covered some good grounds today. We talked about how superstition grows, how stories get repeated, how cultural fear can create a kind of energetic fog around a date. We flipped it, or hopefully we did. Hopefully we did a pretty good job of changing the narrative and reclaiming the day. Because Friday the 13th is not a curse. It really is a power day. Every week we are given a Friday, a day ruled by Venus, carrying energy around magnetism and worthiness, receiving love, beauty, abundance. And every month, we are offered the number 13 as a calendar date. Sacred, lunar, cyclical, transformative. We've talked about how 13 has been feared because it holds wild wisdom of the feminine, the deep rhythm of cycles, and the knowing that endings are never disasters, right? They are doorways. And this week, something especially potent is happening. The day of the week, Friday, and the date of the month, the 13th, are meeting on the same day. And when those two energies cross paths, I think the veil thins just a little bit. The symbolism stacks, the current deepens, and what we're left with isn't bad luck at all. It's an opening, a moment, an invitation for us to perform magic. All right, final thought, and I'm going to go grab my poem. If Friday the 13th has ever made you uncomfortable, if superstition has ever gotten in your head, that doesn't make you less magical. It makes you human. But you are not here to live inside of fear. You are here to learn how to hold your power gently and steadily and beautifully. So when Friday the 13th comes around again, and it will, we have 2 more in our 2026 calendar year, I hope you remember you don't have to hide. You don't have to brace yourself. You don't even have to give that date power. Instead, you can make it a ritual day, a new story day, a day where you stand a little taller and say, I trust my path, my timing, and I trust my magic. And if you do one tiny thing, even one little itty bitty thing to, mark the day differently, well, that is how superstition breaks. That is how power returns and magic becomes yours again. I do have a poem for today and our lucky Friday the 13th date. And I have the moon update for us this week and for this weekend. I'm going to go grab those notes and I will be right back. Okay, we've got our poem and it goes. On Friday's edge, the veil runs thin. We don't fear fate, we pull it in. No whispered dread, no hidden curse. We write the spell, we steer the verse. 13 hums with lunar might, a sacred dark, a knowing night. What ends today makes space to grow. The seed is set in shadow's glow. So lock the door to doubt and dread, and crown your courage in its stead. With steady hands and open eyes, we call our luck, and we watch it rise. Protected, guided, fierce and free, we claim the day as destiny. For Friday's love and 13's flame, we rise in power, unashamed. Okay, let's see. The moon right now is in her waning phase, as this airs on Wednesday, and gently inching up to her dark phase this weekend. We got another interesting weekend, right? 2 weeks ago, we had the full moon and Imbolc on Sunday the 1st, and here we are again with a pretty big weekend. We have Friday the 13th, then Saturday the 14th, and our Lupercalia and Valentine's Day energy, and then on Tuesday next week, our new moon. I'll talk about the new moon more next week, but for today, I would love to focus on the dark moon that's happening this weekend. Because the dark moon is so private and potent and shadowy, and then we've got Valentine's and Lupercalia, which are like loud and sensual and really heart centered, just wildly primal. I think we've got some magic here if we can learn how to work with both sides. Again, we've got the dark moon, like what's true, and then Valentine's and Lupercalia, maybe like what's desired. So, how does that work for us? How can we break it down in a way that is super usable in our practices? The dark moon is the final breath before the new moon. It's not for pushing, it's definitely not for performing. It is the moon phase for release, truth telling, clearing old love stories, maybe, right? Cutting cords, protecting your heart, resetting desire, and just making space for new love, new pleasure, and new standards that are coming with the new moon. So if February is, full of romance messaging and pressure, I don't know, the dark moon really is where we get to ask, what do I want when nobody is telling me what I should want? That's going to be our power. Then we've got Valentine's energy, right? Valentine's isn't just hearts and flowers. I think for many of us, Valentine's is devotion magic, sweetening spells, self-love enchantments. We've got like relationship healing, attraction and worthiness, and just choosing the love that you're available for. It's soft, but I do think it is deeply powerful. And we've also got Lupercalia energy, which is, the older, wilder current beneath everything. It's really like the spicy one. Historically, Lupercalia was an ancient Roman festival, right? We talked about this earlier. Mid-February, it's tied to fertility, purification, vitality, protection of the land and people. It's really that primal life force. So in witchy terms, it's basically, the time to make the body sacred again. It's earthy, bold, lusty, and really untamed. So what can we do with all of this? If we blend Friday energy, the number 13 energy, our dark moon energy, plus the Valentine's and Lupercalia energy, oh my gosh, you guys, we get this, sacred desire and sacred discernment type field, meaning yes to love, yes to pleasure, yes to devotion, but not at the cost of ourselves. Potentially can be a pretty big weekend here. Let me know what you guys end up doing if you are, in fact, working with this energy. I'm not totally sure what I'm going to be doing yet. Well, I've got a couple ideas, but it really, really is an interesting weekend and a lot of blending of energies that we can tap into. Well, I do know one thing. One thing that I am doing this coming weekend is my new moon, new recipe video for Hearth and Hen. And I am tapping into this exact energy, like dark moon truth, little Valentine softness, and the ancient, wild Lupercalia spark that reminds us that we are allowed to want what we want. So I am making something that matches it perfectly. I am going to be making some dark chocolate lava cakes. Rich, warm, molten in the center, the kind of dessert that just feels like a spell when you cut into it. Now I'm going to be pairing it with this sparkling pomegranate rosemary spritz because, I don't know, pomegranate is abundance and desire. Rosemary is our protection, of course. And those bubbles, well, for me, that is just pure joy. That is celebration. That is Venus energy saying, yes, you get to receive. And I just love the symbolism of all of it because that's what this season is really about. It's not just romance, it's about devotion. It's not just about pleasure, but the power we have. And of course, with our dark moon weekend, it is not just about darkness, but, more like the place where new beginnings come from. So if you want to join me for that new moon, new recipe video, come on over to Patreon and be a part of our Hearth and Hen family. We are going to be in the kitchen together, stirring intention into every step. The link is in the show notes, and I would truly love to have you with us. For now, though, I hope today's thoughts about Friday the 13th and the beautiful world of number magic brought a smile to your face. Maybe even opened a few new workings you could try the next time this energy shows up. Because, well, that's the whole point, right? Just to understand the signs and work with them. If you've been enjoying these Witchy Work Wishes episodes, I would truly love your support because this podcast is something I pour so much of my heart into, and it just means the world to me to know that it's landing with you. The easiest way to support the show is to leave a quick rating or review wherever you listen. Or also send this episode to a friend who would just, totally vibe with it. It may feel small, but it's actually one of the biggest ways you help this podcast grow. And it helps more witches find their way into our community. As always, you guys know if you'd like to go deeper with me each month, you are always welcome over on Patreon. That's where we do our monthly animal oracle card draw, and then we have the worksheets and spells and journal prompts and rituals to support it. These are all designed to support your real life, your real goals, with a little animal magic woven in. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today. You are the reason this space feels like home. I hope you have a great rest of your week, an amazing Friday the 13th, a wonderful Saturday the 14th, and Valentine's Day and Lupercalia weekend. I hope the dark moon of February is just everything you and your practice need right now. I will talk with you next week. Thank you for joining me today at Witchy Work Wishes, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. For more information and additional content, please visit me online at witchyworkwishes.com. If you want to send me a personal note, please email me at info@witchyworkwishes.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Witchy Work Wishes.